Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 22nd of April of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And of course the most important and the most interesting updates are coming from Bakhmut. As you can see, there are a lot of icons in this area. The Russians are saying that as a result at the clashes and clearing operation the central part, the Ukrainians lost their last bridgehead in the vicinity of the railroad station, and they were forced to step back inside the western part. Also, the Russians are saying that there is a fierce fightings in the western part of Bakhmut, and for example, the Russians are pushing from the northern part in direction of the central part of the western Bakhmut. As a result of the previous 24 hours is that the Russians established control over the college in this area and the post office in this area as well. So as you can see, the Russians are moving in direction of Khromova, and their main goal is to connect with their forces who are currently pushing in direction of 0506 road. As you know, there is a fierce fightings in this area after the Ukrainians lost their position in this small area. The Ukrainians took a decision to regain their lost position, and now they're sending wave by wave in this direction with one purpose: to push Wagner's back and to regain their lost positions. But everything is not so simple. Yes, it's like obvious step from the Ukrainian side to regain this position and to return control over the road, because as we know, according to the Russian sources and according to the Ukrainian sources, this road gave up to 60% of support of the garrison that is located in Bakhmut. So this is a significant number, and losing of this supply road will lead sooner or later to the entire collapse and defeat of Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut. But there is one big problem. I'm not sure whether to believe this piece of information or not. But for example, today the head of Wagner's reported that there is a strike among the military forces of Ukraine in Chasov Yar and inside of Konstantinovka. He didn't give a lot of information about that, but as I understand, after the Ukrainians lost their position in Bakhmut, in this small, not in Bakhmut, but on this 0506 road, the Ukrainian commanders took a decision to return this position, no matter the cost and no matter the price they're going to pay for this. And the only possible solution to do this is to send like counter-offensive operation, to start counter-offensive operation, and to send wave by wave of Ukrainian soldiers. And we understand that Ukrainian soldiers who are selected for this operation, they understand that this is a ticket to one way. So there is no way to return back from the battle for 0506 road. And of course, nobody wants to die. And I believe that this is the reason of the strike in Chasov Yar and Konstantinovka. And if the situation is going to develop the same way, that means that this is not going to be the final strike among the Ukrainian soldiers. Sooner or later, the situation will force them to start strikes all over the entire combat line inside of Bakhmut, in the vicinity of Bakhmut as well. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation are saying that as a result of clashes on Donetsk frontline, the Ukrainians lost 255 soldiers, 17 armored vehicles, and 5 artillery systems. Furthermore, when talking about the other Russian sources and military experts on the ground and so on, they're saying that Ukrainians loses around 400 soldiers in the vicinity of Bakhmut per day. I'm not sure do we need to calculate these numbers like the numbers of Ministry of Defense and the losses of the Ukrainians inside of Bakhmut. I don't know. But I believe that when talking about the report of Ministry of Defense, they don't include the number of losses of Ukrainians inside of Bakhmut, because this is like private information of PMC Wagner. They have their own reports, and I believe that these numbers are not included. But anyway, the numbers are very heavy, and this is very big problem for the Ukrainians. Furthermore, the Russians are saying that as a result of clashes on Donetsk frontline, they managed to destroy another warehouse of artillery shells in the town by the name of Sergeyevka. This one, they destroyed one ammo depot in Konstantinovka. It also was another artillery depot in this area, and the Russians destroyed a lot of and attacked a lot of Ukrainian position, mainly artillery position in the vicinity of Donetsk. As we know, recently the Russians have been focused to take control over Nivolskaya. During the previous weeks, they managed to establish control over this forest line right in front of Nivolskaya, and currently these days they were trying to attack Nivolskaya from the south, trying to encircle this area and then to cut the supply roads between Nivolskaya and trenches on the south of Nivolskaya that are leading to Krasnogorovka. And as a result of that attack, the Ukrainians were, and furthermore the Russians were pretty successful in those attacks. And as a result of those fierce fightings, the Ukrainians were forced to step back, at least to move their artillery positions to this line between Ostraya, Gornyak, and Galinovka. And this is very important for the Russians because these positions behind Nivolskaya, the Ukrainians were using them to attack and shell Donetsk. And now they are not able to do this, at least from these positions. The Russians moved closer to the combat line, their artillery systems, and they're starting bombing this area. So we see that the geography of the duels and clashes around Donetsk has been changed, and this is very important for the Russian side. For example, when talking about this line, the Russians attacked 43rd Artillery Brigade in this area. If we take a look at the Russian deployment map, according to this map, this 43rd Artillery Brigade is located in the vicinity of Bakhmut, in this area. This is the 43rd Brigade. And but the Russians are saying, according to the report of Ministry of Defense, that the warehouses and positions of that brigade was attacked on this line, on Avdiivka bridgehead. Maybe there are some battalions or groups of those artilleries and so on. Anyway, the one ammo depot of that brigade was destroyed. Was destroyed in Gornyak. Some positions in Galinovka was destroyed, and another D30 of the 43rd Brigade was destroyed in Ostraya. Furthermore, the Russians are saying that they managed to destroy another position of 110th Mechanized Brigade in Avdiivka. As we discussed, this is the most hunted brigade from the Ukrainian side in this area. The Russians, after accumulating some forces, after collection of some forces on the bridgehead between Novoselovka, Taraya, Krasnogorovka and Novobakhmutovka, made a few attempts to develop their offensive operation to advance in direction of Novokalinova. And as a result of those attacks, they managed to get more position to push the Ukrainians from some checkpoints, from some trenches, from fortifications. But it wasn't like a real offensive operation. Mainly it was like something like recon combat in this area with some progress. Furthermore, we remember that Ukrainians also are trying to collect some forces in the vicinity of Chertina, Arkhangelsk and Novokalinova. There are like two purposes of that: or to stop the Russians, or maybe to make an attempt to regain their lost positions in Krasnogorovka. We'll see whether it's possible or not. I believe that within the next few days or weeks we are going to understand this, because the battle for Avdiivka, the final battle for Avdiivka, is about to begin. Now let's go a little bit to the north, and let's discuss the situation on the Liman front line. There came a lot of updates from this area as well. The Russians are saying that as a result of clashes, artillery duels and so on, the Ukrainians lost 65 soldiers, 2 armored vehicles and 1 artillery system. Not much. The Russians attacked the Ukrainian position in Yampolovka. There was like the position of 81st Brigade. They attacked the Ukrainian position in Plashanka, near Plashanka. This is Plashanka, and the Russians attacked the Ukrainian positions in the field in the trenches of 66th Mechanized Brigade on the way to Makeevka and Nevskaya. And the Russians attacked the Ukrainian position near Dibrova in the forest of 95th Brigade. And as a result, the losses are not so heavy, but anyway, the Russians are pushes. There are no more updates from Bilogorovka and Spornaya. The Russians are trying to encircle Bilogorovka from the north, but there are very fierce and very heavy clashes in forest. We see that the Russians are trying to advance, they're advancing, but it is very difficult because all this forest is full of mines. There are a lot of Ukrainians who have hidden positions and so on. When talking about Kupiansk, the Russians are saying that as a result of clashes during the previous 24 hours, they managed to break few rotations in this area. They destroyed a few artillery systems, and also the Russians destroyed another radar in this area. But the most important update is that as a result of those clashes, fierce fightings, the Ukrainians lost 60 soldiers. And for example, today, according to the report, they lost 60 soldiers yesterday, another 60 the day before yesterday, 55. And for example, on the 19th of April, the Ukrainians lost 120 soldiers on the Kupiansk front line. If we compare these numbers with the numbers we received from this front line a month ago or a few weeks ago, the level of losses of the Ukrainian side in this area was around 35 soldiers per day. So we can see it's a fact of some kind of intensifying of Russian activity in this area. We know that there are still a lot of things to do, because Sinkovka and Dvoriechna, these two towns, still remains under Ukrainian control, this Dvoriechna and this Sinkovka, and if the Russians want to develop their offensive operation and to break the entire situation, they need to move in direction of these two towns and to take control over them if they want to begin the battle for Kupiansk. I'm not sure that the Russians we're going to see the battle for Kupiansk very soon, but anyway, sooner or later, this is going to happen. Now let's go to the South Donetsk area and the Zaporizhzhia area. As you can see, there are a lot of icons as well. The Russians are saying that as a result of clashes in this area, the Ukrainians lost 150 soldiers. As you can see, the losses are very heavy. Furthermore, the Russians destroyed at least one ammo depot. The Russians managed to discover and destroy a few commandos in the vicinity of Ugledar. But when talking about Ugledar, the front line is stable. There are no movements, just some kind of, it's just like a game, military game between two parties without any active fierce clashes on the combat line. When talking about Zaporizhzhia, the same situation, just the artillery duels. The Ukrainians are moving and trying to accumulate and collect as much as possible forces. The Russians are doing the same. This area currently is over-concentrated, overpopulated, so this is the best solution for both sides to reduce the enemy's army as much as possible. Very interesting updates are coming from Kherson. Yesterday we discussed that the Ukrainians managed to cross Dnieper River and to establish control over this small residential area on the Russian side of this bridgehead. As you can see, after those updates, the Russian sources map has been updated. Now this territory is under Ukrainian control. The Russians control just the area in the vicinity of the bridge, but I believe that this area is also in the gray zone. But anyway, the most important is that after we got these updates about the situation on this bank of the river, after we received a lot of video and photo confirmation that the Ukrainians captured this territory, the Russian commanders took a decision to intensify their actions in this area, and they start bombing the bridgehead, bombing this bank of the river with everything they have, with artilleries, with missiles, with rockets, with mortars, and so on. They published a lot of video and photo confirmation of destroyed Ukrainian forces. Currently, I'm not sure that Ukrainians are still there. I think that's not a very good idea, but maybe to show some picture or even to bother Russians a little bit, to make some problems for them, maybe they will try to hold this bridgehead, because we know that the Ukrainians are good at least at one thing, to hold the bridgehead. I'm not saying that they are good at the offensive operation or something like this, but then when the Ukrainians take this or that bridgehead, they're trying to hold this area as long as possible, and they're not counting their losses and sending more and more waves to control this area, or something like this. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.